Let's take a look at some information and charts on Zcash for BraveNewCoin. Zcash is a proof-of-work optional privacy chain which uses the Equihash algorithm. They have fully private addresses, fully public addresses, and then a mixed shielded and unshielded or de-shielding addresses. The biggest issue here being because it is not privacy by default, most exchanges will disable it for regulatory reasons, and or the privacy data set is too small to make transactions truly untraceable and private. So while a good idea in theory, perhaps, it hasn't really worked out well as optional privacy. ECC is the main developer, the electric coin company behind Zcash. I always like to look at the quarterly reports that these companies put out. Basically, does the company have any money left? And they do. They have plenty of money with, looks like a $564,000 quarterly burn, somewhere around there. Obviously, you can read into this further, but it's not a good look for a coin if the developer can't pay its employees. And I think they'll be okay in the near term. Obviously, they'd be better off if they're holding Zeke to have the price of Zeke be increasing. Hash rate is relatively flat over the past couple years. This is since Jan 2019. It's waxed and waned with China stuff, with Zcash price. Overall, not much change since maybe January 2020. Obviously, hash rate did hit an all-time high, so that was a bit of a big deal at the time, continuing to push all-time highs like that. But those days seem to be over now that China is out of the mix. If you look at the Equihash hashing algorithm that Zcash uses, there are a few ASICs, the most recent being June 2020, and at 4 cents per kilowatt hour, they are still all in profit currently. On-chain stats for Zcash are mild. Again, you expect anything that's bullish to have bullish on-chain stats. You can say one follows the other, you can say one leads, one lags, but at the end of the day, unless the on-chain stats are bullish, it's hard to be bullish on a coin. In Zcash's case, because there is optional privacy, some of the transactions are not included in the calculations on coin metrics, and that includes this transaction count metric. Even still, transactions have basically been flat since 2019. Not too much has happened on that front. Average transaction value is also a metric that is not completely correct without the optional privacy transactions. Is also down and kind of flat since 2019. If we look at the reports from ECC, Zcash stored in shielded pools continues to increase, which is good. You want the shielded pools to have, ideally, all of the Zcash, but the bigger the pool, the better. The more mixing can occur, the more obscuring and privacy stuff can occur with a bigger pool, and that's continuing to grow. And the shielded and fully shielded transactions per quarter has grown a little bit since 2019, 2020, but you really want to see this flipped. You want to see most of the transactions shielded, few of the transactions transparent or partially shielded. If it's partially shielded, it's fully able to be discovered what's what. It has to be end-to-end, fully shielded in order to truly be private. I think the biggest issue that a lot of people have with Zcash is it's sold as a privacy coin when in reality, that's not what it's essentially used for. Now, it's obviously up to the user to use something to the coin's fullest capacity. But unless this is end-to-end fully encrypted, it's not private at all. If we look at NVT, another metric that is influenced by the lack of privacy data here, NVT has fallen and stayed low. NVT is an inverse metric of economic utility relative to price. So not too bearish there. Active addresses, flat, doesn't include shielded transactions. But again, if we look at this data here, most of the transactions aren't shielded anyway. So in reality, it might not even matter that those aren't included in any of these calculations. It's a bold statement, I know, but it might not matter. Now, if a majority of transactions were shielded, this data would be meaningless, but that's not the case. So MVRV is a direct measure of on-chain activity versus price versus market cap, rather. And for most coins, they top out at a 2x multiple as far as MVRV is concerned. So we hit 2 several times in 2017 and most recently in May 2011. Currently, MVRV is 0.8. So if you're bullish Zcash USD, if you're bullish anything, you want to see on-chain activity match increases in price. You want to see not just speculation happening, but actual use of the chain. That's what keeps MVRV low. If market cap jumps up quickly without on-chain activity following through, then you will see MVRV rise extremely quickly, telling you be careful, things are overbought. Again, you could argue that this does not include the shielded transactions, therefore is incomplete data. My counterpoint to that would be it doesn't seem to matter. You still get MVRV at around 2 being the top or the local top, and that's kind of it. So if this thing runs to 2, that's a good exit signal for longs. If this thing runs to 0.3, looks like historically has been the low on MVRV. 0.3 is the buy zone, 2 plus is the sell zone, currently at 0.8. And just in case you've never seen me do anything on Zcash, we can look at chain analysis, talk about Zcash being discoverable. We can look at all these companies, Elliptic, CipherTrace as well. They're in on the game, trying to track Monero. They can't seem to get a handle on it, at least publicly, to the knowledge that I have. They're still trying to crack Monero. And early on in 2018, they did discuss privacy by default. So everybody knows this is the way to go. I don't think that's a doubt. There's a doubt in anybody's mind. It may just be too late for that to happen. It would require a fork, clearly, to make things private by default. But they've talked about going proof of stake in the past. There have been some minor discussion about kind of getting folded into ETH at some point. I doubt that'll ever happen, but there have been conversations about that. Zcash worldwide Google trends past 5 years, just like on-chain activity, if this is flat or low or at all-time lows, you're probably not going to be bullish on price. Zcash has a lot of altcoin competition, things that do fun stuff for people like yield and interest, gambling on NFTs. Zcash doesn't really have any of that. Any coin that doesn't have the flavor of the month, flavor of the week, flavor of the quarter stuff isn't going to get the attention immediately. If Zcash moves in price, it will probably be late cycle rotations because it hasn't moved already. That'd be my guess. So on technicals on the 5200, EMAs are currently crossed bearish. Price is sitting above VPVR support. RSI doesn't really help you. Volume doesn't really help you. Monthly pivots don't really help you, but there is a monthly pivot at 70 to 80. This just doesn't look exciting enough to me relative to everything else on a USD chart that I would want to think about touching until everything else is 2.5, 10x. Does that mean Zcash can't move with it? No, but the better trade is to take the easy trade. The easy trade is to look for stuff that's clearly bullish, that clearly has some sort of chart pattern or bias or impetus to move higher. Currently, Zcash does not have that. If Zcash gets a bullish 5200 cross, then we can talk about higher highs. 5200 cross above $200, and it's probably go time. But until then, it's probably just ranges here in this little pocket of no volume between 100 and 200. So I think 200 is the big level on the USD pair to watch. And on the BTC pair, it's been in this multi-year downtrend, pitchfork, below volume resistance, bearish 5200 cross. It attempted to break out of this, couldn't. So it's hard to get bullish when stuff looks like that. Bouncing back to the ZQSD chart real quick. On the cloud, it's also below the cloud, bearish TK cross. So until this is above at least 130, 135, 140, then we can talk about long entry signals. But if you watched any of the other videos today that I did, the Setup Monday video or the Curve video, the clouds look much different than they do on Zcash. Zcash is very clearly significantly more bearish to neutral than the easy stuff like Curve with its breakout above the cloud and a 5200 bull cross. This doesn't mean this can't move up this quarter. It just means right now they're just better trades out there. It's just that simple. And against ETH, it looks pretty dire in that it's probably going to continue pushing all-time lows on no volume, no bull div. It's getting denied at the 50 EMA over and over and over again. There is no strength here. This does not look bad enough to buy. This probably just keeps dwindling lower and lower and lower. Again, it doesn't have DeFi. It doesn't have NFTs. Regardless of your feelings of any of those things, it's not where the attention and money is currently flowing. Let me just mention the ETHBTC fund and DeFi portfolio. On TechMe Capital on NZAP.finance that I trade for TechMe Capital, a non-custodial portfolio management solution where you can see everything, including AUM performance allocation. You can see all the vaults. We are earning interest here on Comp, Yearn, and Aave. No Zcash in this bucket, obviously. You can see the trades and the trades tab down below. And that's all for this one. Like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.